מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. לעת תכין מטבח, מצר המנבח. אז אגמור שיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח. אז אגמור שיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח. מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. לעת תכין מטבח, מצר המנבח. אז אגמור שיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח. אז אגמור שיר מזמור, חנוכת המזבח. מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. מהו צור ישועתי, לך נאה לשבח. תיכון בית תפילתי, ושם תודה נזבח. מהו צור
מהו צור ישועתי. Hanukkah Sameach, everyone. Hanukkah Sameach. We will see today a common theme in rabbinic literature that we've run into before as well, where water means Torah, but also light means Torah and enlightenment. So as we experience these dark days, physically or meteorologically, I think you can use that word for this context, as of dark days, also the dark days of these horrible events, whether the massacre in Australia, or the attack at Brown, or the Reiners. Well, I just found out yesterday, by the way, Michelle Singer Reiner is sister of my colleague, Rabbi Suzanne Singer in Riverside. Some of you perhaps have met her before. Yeah, it's difficult times. And so we gather together to study, to spill light into the field, into the streets. And we'll gather some of us together in person this evening to do so with music and spread joy and light in that way. If you had wanted to come to Jews to the Blues, and you live in our area, of course, and you're not able to because I think tickets may have already been sold out, I think, then let me know right away, and Madalena may have some spare that we're keeping for, I don't know, or people have canceled. Today, 2 people let me know that they can't come. They're sick. So please let me know if you'd like to come. Okay, so yeah, the good news is I got good news and I got bad news, everybody. The good news is that we are studying today and we're keeping that itim likboa itim the Torah, the rabbinic dictum of setting specific times for studying Torah. The bad news is that I'm not all that well prepared because there's a lot to do. And so I think I got the first page down pretty much. There's some interesting Hebrew words here, some that really don't appear or almost don't appear at all, which are challenging. There's some interesting imagery, which is challenging as well. But we're starting a new part of this book, which will take us through the next few chapters. I think the next 4 chapters, this and the next 3 after this, which is called the Hezekian compilation, and we'll see that in a second because of the way that this section opens up. It starts with the word gum, these two also, and that's how last week's section started. In other words, we feel in the way that these sections have been are being introduced, we can get a feeling for the compilation aspect or the anthological character of the book of Proverbs that we've been talking about all along. Not just different proverbs that have been put together, like in that big section that took us a month and a half, 2 months to finish, just recently, but also the fact that the whole book is made up of different compilations, slightly different genre as well. You'll remember perhaps in the first chapters there were lectures, actual lectures that were cohesive in their themes. We don't have that today. We do have an overall theme of, there's a section here about the royal court, and we can posit, I think, safely that this is where it originates, because wisdom literature in general comes from the royal court and culture from all ancient Near Eastern societies. It doesn't come from, at least the stuff that we have written, doesn't come from poems written by sheep herders, that kind of stuff that you may have. Those kind of poems perhaps reach. It doesn't come from the temple. It comes from the royal court. So it's natural to have this section that we'll have today. And in general, we may pick up on some other themes as well. So let us begin then. And I will ask, let's see, Megan, if you would read the first section, and then we'll do Rashi as well. Well, go ahead.
These 2 are the Proverbs of Solomon, which the officials of King Hezekiah of Judah copied.
Okay. Anybody know that name before you've heard that name? Anybody know anything about Hezekiah? What? Richard?
Hezekiah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know the name. I don't know much about. I don't know anything about him.
Anybody know anything about him? One particular thing?
He instituted reforms.
Right.
There's a tunnel in Jerusalem.
And then didn't he ask, right, the tunnel. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And didn't he ask to live, he prayed to live, and he lived 15 more years?
Yeah. That's why there's a question about how long he reigned. We're talking about 728, more or less, around 728 is when he began his reign, and he either reigned until 687 or 699 BCE. Okay, so we're talking about 8th, 7th century BCE. Yes, he was a reformer, and yes, he's famous for, today, secular Israelis, tourists know him more than anything else because of the tunnel. And the tunnel is, well, there's 2 places anyway, but the one that we think of the most is the water from Silwan, right? So the challenge, and we'll get to this is relevant for the rabbinic literature. The challenge is that the Temple Mount is a mount, and down towards the bottom of the Temple Mount, it was the city of David, going halfway down for those of you that know that area. It's an area which is very controversial today because there are settlers who moved in there and lived there, and they use the archaeological dig there as their reason to be there. And in their minds, in their feelings, they're going back to the city of David, and that historically is most probably true. And you can imagine what it's like to go back to live in a place that you knew that your king from 3,000 plus years ago was living. I understand the emotional attachment. Of course, there were Palestinians that were living there beforehand that had been thrown out of that area, and it's a challenge. But what we knew long before we were, I think, Les or I or others that are been in Israel for, since we were young in the 60s and 70s, before we really had a feeling for the late 60s and 70s, a feeling for the political issues, we were taken there as kids. I don't know about you, Les, but as a kid, 15-year-old, we walked through the water, through this water tunnel. Anybody else been to that water tunnel that we're talking about? Oh, it's quite an experience.
So isn't there also an issue that the city of David is sort of right adjacent to the base of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and that the excavation there has the Muslims in the mosque upset?
Yes, but I don't know they're upset because it's close by, right? City of David is right outside of the wall, the late wall, the Ottoman Empire's wall that's there, or even it's right outside of the gates to the temple where the southern wall excavations are. But it's not like it's 4 meters away. It's like hundreds of meters away, I think. But
I thought they were worried it was undermining the temple. Okay.
yeah, I think there are other excavations that are undermining the temple that are done on the other side in the Muslim quarter. The Kotel excavations, for those that have been there on an in-depth tour, literally in depth, is there? There's another part of the Western Wall which wasn't exposed to the elements. There's other parts which is further down. You've got to go through a particular alleyway to get there. It was open when I was young already. We went there, exposed area, and some more adventurous yeshiva students you'll find them saying prayers or psalms there. But there are excavations underneath that you can get to near the plaza of the Western Wall that go down deep. And those are the ones I think, Les, that they were most worried about, because there is a concern of you're burrowing under the Temple Mount where Al-Aqsa is, where the Dome of the Rock is. So the city of David is a little bit further down, I think. And to endanger the Al-Aqsa Mosque, actually, which is the other mosque, not the Golden Dome, you would be digging at the southern wall excavations, and those have been done already for a long time. As a 15-year-old, I was able to be part for 2 weeks. The group I was with for the year, we volunteered on that dig. My job was to sling the sledgehammer. I was a starke young boy in those days, a starke junger man. Yes, not to break down the fines, of course, but the big, yeah. Okay.
Was it also miraculous with the tunnel about how they were able to meet in the middle?
Yeah. I don't remember all the things that are said, and how that engineering feat, it's considered to be an engineering feat, but for our intents and purposes, Hezekiah was an important king. And those that have studied the book of Samuel and Kings and know that whole saga of how we got to the kingship and what happened with the kingship, there are far more wicked kings than there are positive kings. And Hezekiah is just one of those guys. So, and there's a lot about him, and we're going to see now too, Midrashim about him. But back to this particular introduction of Hezekiah HaMelech, I need to just see if it's the police. No. Okay. Yeah, and for those that are coming on Sunday to our Hanukkah event, somebody asked me if we will have security. I think that my policy is not to have special security. I think that's giving into to a situation which is anyway. But the police do know. Whenever we do something, the police are aware and are often parked nearby. And of course, it's good for us to be on their radar screens. So that's why I may have to take the call for the message that I left with the police department now. So back to this. Chizkiyahu is the title of the section is his scribes. His officials are his scribes. They put down words that their tradition was it was Solomon. Now, if that was added by the editor afterwards because somebody already said all of Proverbs that belongs to Solomon, or this is the part, I'm not really interested so much. But it feels, first of all, it gives us an idea that the the awareness of the fact this is a collection from different literary sources. The interesting word here is a word which is very, very common in modern Hebrew. That's atiku. Um,
Mhm.
we use the word otik is copy, to copy something. Atik is to copy something from your neighbor in an exam, to cheat. And it's a rather rare word in biblical in biblical Hebrew. And so whether it means copied or it might also mean gathered, brought together. Not a huge difference, but I kind of like the brought together thing because we're talking about all the time that this literature is an outcome of this bringing together, this gathering of the wisdom. Okay. That because maybe I'm influenced also by the other wisdom book, Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. Kohelet means the one who gathered. If we're talking about King Solomon or whoever we're talking about, the one who gathered together, people gathered wisdom together. Okay, so go ahead, if you would, Megan, and read what Rashi has to say about this.
These two are Solomon's proverbs, which maintained, when Hezekiah was appointed king, he returned to expound upon them, Solomon's proverbs. Now he placed disciples in every city, as it is stated in chapter Helek. They searched from Dan to Beersheba and could not find an ignoramus.
Here's a situation where if you read Rashi as a layperson with no background, you don't get a lot out of it. You get a lot out of the first sentence, right? We understand that because that explains. Because what does this mean? If Mishle belongs to Solomon, why is Chizkiyahu mentioned here? And that's because when he was appointed king, it's part of aggrandizing him as a king that he went ahead and he returned. He returned to that literature, that Solomonic literature, and expounded upon it. But now the second part, now he placed disciples in every city. So that's the rabbinic tradition. And he's quoting in brevity something from the Talmud. So if you were growing up with knowing Talmud, and especially knowing the Agadot, the legend parts of the Talmud, then you'd slip into this easily because he even tells you where to look for it. But often before the Talmud was printed, the references to how you find something in Talmud is in what chapter it's in, and chapters have names based on the first important word of the chapter. So this is Elu yesh lem chelik ba'olam haba in Sanhedrin. These are the ones who have a place in the world to come. Chelik means place in this context. So I brought you what he's referring to in Sanhedrin. If you go ahead and read this, Megan, this kind of expansion of the biblical text, this fantasy kind of expansion.
What did Hezekiah do to ensure Torah study? He inserted a sword at the entrance of the study hall and said, anyone who does not engage in Torah study shall be stabbed with this sword. As a result, they searched from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south and did not find an ignoramus. They searched from Gavat to Antipatris and did not find a male child or a female child or a man or a woman who is not expert even in the complex halakot of ritual purity and impurity.
Okay, a little bit of hyperbole there.
Yeah.
Hyperbole, right? Hyperbolic. So the first thing is putting a sword. It sounds a little bit strange. We would think that if you put a sword in the entrance of the study hall, people would not be, would be kind of pushed away. It would not be attracted to coming in. That's kind of my argument as well about this massive show of force that most synagogues in the United States, at least in big cities and another one here in the Valley as well, feel it's very important to me. A big thing is made of the security. Now, I understand it, and I certainly don't know responsible for something going wrong. On the other hand, it becomes a culture unto itself. So to me, this feels like it would be pushing people away. But so there could be a better translation here. I went with whatever the Davidson translation in Sefaria, but there might be. I think we get the idea though. The idea is, it's like there's a guy with a sword stationed outside of the study hall, And he says to him, "You going in to study Torah, or do I need to deal with you with the sword?" So that's kind of how I understand it.
But I wouldn't go.
You wouldn't go. Okay. Well, there's another way to understand it, perhaps, is that the sword reminded those coming into the study house they better pay attention and
Right.
not just fall asleep, okay, or be on their iPhones. Okay,
But maybe
so
that's why he didn't have any ignoramuses. The only ones that went that weren't afraid of the sword that was the intelligent people who could study all the Holocaust.
oh, I see. So they were weeded out. Okay, that's a
Hmm.
pretty sinister interpretation, Rabbi Malka. Okay, so and then
I
then
actually, Rabbi, I like
yeah.
Rabbi Malka's interpretation though, because I find this very, I don't know, it's um, intimidating. I mean, the use of intimidation in order to accomplish a goal, and I find that offensive.
Yeah, oppressive, yeah.
And
It's
and
not
very
ideal.
biblical, by the
Very
way.
biblical and very rabbinic. It's very Talmudic as well. It's not, there is a lot of, and hence many of us get the feeling from those who are Orthodox or more right wing, certainly conservative movement as well, of this kind of the same usage of this, let's call it oppression or force of coercion.
Mhm.
Certainly Israelis feel that about Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, and also National Religious Party people now. Yeah. And then the Talmud goes on to give uh, four geographical points, one in the south, one in the north and the south, east and the west. So you couldn't find. And all this to say, in rabbinic terms, is bringing this biblical story into rabbinic context, what would be a reform today if everybody, even the children, would know the ins and outs of the most complicated halachot there are, which are purity and impurity. Yeah.
Where
Okay.
is Antipatris?
I think Antipatris is. Uh, I think there are different places that were called. One of the places we called Antipatris is where the the springs of Rosh Ayin are. The one Rosh Ayin is called Rosh Ayin because it's at these springs. What do we call them now today? They provide much of the water for all of the state of Israel, by the way. Not from people think from the Kinneret. Actually, there's more water from those springs, and I think that's Antipatris. But I think there are also different places that were called Antipatris, and I don't know. I didn't look up where and Gevat are. Yeah, yeah. Okay. There's Kibbutz Geva, but that's on the coast, so I don't know if that's connected. In that case, it would be. But it's clear that it's an east-west orientation. Okay, and then one more, if you would, Megan, from Midrash Tehillim.
Glorious things are said about you, the city of God forever. Psalm 87:3. This refers to Hezekiah, as it says, and how he made the conduit and the pool, and he brought the water into the city, 2 Kings. Hezekiah sealed up the waters of Gihon spring, and it says he brought the water into the city because he was a collector of traditions. And this verse is actually referring to the words of Torah, which are compared to water, as it says, "Ho, all who thirst go to water," Isaiah. It also says, "Come partake of my bread," Proverbs. What would Hezekiah do? When he saw that it was well ordered, he brought it to the city. That it was well taught, he brought it to the city. That it was written. These two are Solomon's Proverbs, which the men of Hezekiah, the king of Judah, maintained. Proverbs.
Okay, so the important part here, I think, is less so that, well, first of all, is the water thing. Basing on what the historical fact that's in the Book of Kings that he brought. Oh, what I neglected to mention beforehand was the problem with Jerusalem was you've got walls around it and around the city of David as well, but there was no source of water. So they were able to tunnel from this spring, which is outside, and to seal it off at the top, so they couldn't have their water source cut off from them, which is a common thing that you do in siege warfare. So that's why they were able to bring the water in. That's why it was such a fantastic feat. Otherwise, just schlep the water up the hill. What's the problem, right? And what it brings here, of course, is that the water, which was known to the sages from the book of Kings turns into Torah, as I mentioned before, a metaphor for Torah, and in general feeding the people. And the overall idea is to say that this title of this section is that Hezekiah provided for the people spiritually, nourished them, quenched their spiritual thirst and their intellectual thirst. So Sasha mentioned the fact that Gihon is the place where the spring is. Gihon means, I think, something that's it shoots out. I think that's what Gihon. And the water and how the desert water. What do we have here? What's it called? The Desert Water something authority.
Water District.
The Desert Water District. The one for Jerusalem is called Gihon. That's the name. That's kind of the charm, if I can shut out everything else right now. The charm of Israel is that when things are called something biblical, and when the history of Gihon, who knows if that's pre-statehood, when it started, or whatever. But that whole first part of the 20th century, the romance with the Hebrew language, the resuscitation of the Hebrew language, and also using it in a practical sense in the state of Israel.
Gihon was also one of the 4 springs that went out from the Garden of Eden.
So I think because Gihon, it means water shooting out, water springing up or flow, bursting. I think bursting maybe, if I remember correctly. Okay. Right. So Sasha is mentioning because of the connection with the sword in the Midrash, that in Gan Eden, after Adam and Chava were sent away, there was an angel with a sword, a sword which was flipping over back and forth. Maybe that's the meaning there, to keep them out. Yeah, a person with a sword at a gate is a common thing, I think, in the ancient world, as it is in Israel today, with a man with a gun and checking the bags if anybody goes into a shopping mall or a theater, even restaurants. And is in some places here, and that's the balance that I keep talking about from the very beginning of what we're talking about today, and notifying the police. This balance between not, we know people in Europe that don't go to synagogues because it's just way too restrictive. You've got to go through. You've got to be. It's humiliating, especially if you're a Jew. Right? I think it's humiliating if you're not a Jew as well. But Jews that feel their places in any synagogue, that grew up, say my age and older in the United States, where any synagogue you're welcome, at least to come in. Suddenly you've got to register beforehand. They want to know who you are, and it was oppressive. I found it oppressive as the rabbi of the Stockholm Jewish community. I found it needlessly oppressive. There were better ways of doing it, but
that's the airport, though, isn't it? You
take off your
shoes, take off your belt, take out your cell phone, take out your computers.
Yeah. So we're used to we forgive the TSA for that, right? Maybe we don't. I think those of us that have TSA clearance and clear, it's far easier for us to forgive. But yeah, okay, all right. Anything else in this section of Chizkiyahu HaMelech? Okay. Who do we Rita Claire, would you like to read today?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. 2 to 7.
It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, and the glory of a king to plumb a matter. Like the heavens in their height, like the earth in its depth, in the mind of kings unfathomable. The dross having been separated from the silver, a vessel emerged for the smith. Remove the wicked from the king's presence, and his throne will be established in justice. Do not exalt yourself in the king's presence. Do not stand in the place of nobles, for it is better to be told to step up here than to be degraded in the presence of the great.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here. Sorry, because this should not be in this section. This next part is really it's a complicated thing how it happened. I'm not sure. It's part of it is me. Part of it is the text itself, the way it's graphically presented. But we'll read that part when we go into the next one. Okay. So what do we see here? What kind of a text is this? Anybody?
Well, kings shouldn't have secrets. Only God can have a secret.
Okay, that's a possible understanding. The truth is, it's a tough one. It's a tough one exactly, because it doesn't say not you shouldn't. We assume that it's in opposition, but it may not be in opposition. In fact, Fox says it's really going on the same way that God conceals matters, right? A king will try to figure things out. Not in the same. No, what does he say? Um, and also you won't know in the next two lines, and you won't know what the king is doing in any case. So it's the king's job to try to figure out the world, but whatever it is, you don't know what the king is doing because that's behind closed doors. In the same way, in that way, he's similar to God, that he conceals things from the everyday person on the street.
What does the phrase "is the mind of kings unfathomable" mean?
That you don't know what's going on. You have no idea what's, you're thinking what like some of us do with politicians or other leaders, like what is they possibly thinking? What good can come? We don't understand something, and sometimes politicians will tell you, oh no, there's
Is this saying that we shouldn't try to, or the king has a right to be unfathomable?
Yeah, I don't think it's saying the king has a right as much as that is the state of the world. Kings, you will not understand. Not that you don't have a right to, but you won't understand. It's above your head, above your pay grade.
So let me just like it's saying the king may not understand God, the people may not understand the king.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
Or could it also mean that it's sort of the job of the king to go deep, deep?
Mhm. And
Um,
it's not your job.
It's not your job. The king will do it for you.
Right.
And and then we get the next part where it's to keep the evil people away from the king because you can separate things out. But
Mhm.
um,
So that there's another one. I'm always on your case about possible therapy strategies, right?
yes,
Yeah, you can tell that to your next client. You just say to them, it's not for you to understand. Forget it.
yeah. Only I know.
Right.
Yes,
Let me, yeah, let me,
that would
you
work
don't,
well. That would work well. Yeah.
I like the part where it says it's better kind of to be demoted. It's better to be a sin than it is to be demoted. I like that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So this whole section is about the royal court. You see that here? It's how do you negotiate that reality which is the royal court?
You really have to be very trusting.
Yes, you do. Yeah. And that and maybe that's connected to the fact that Hezekiah was a king that the people could trust, at least in retrospect, as his story is told by the authors of the Book of Kings. Yeah. As opposed to other kings who were wicked and you couldn't trust. So maybe that's why it's appropriate in Hezekiah. There's an interesting word that I couldn't have figured out on my own. I had to actually look up on the fifth line of the Hebrew, Hago Sigim Mikasef. Hago from the root Hey Gimel Hey, Haga. And I don't know how that's connected to the medieval use of the word Haggah, which is before there's a footnote or an interpolation. That's in the Shulchan Aruch for those that have studied Rabbi Yosef Karo and Rabbi Moshe Isserlich's Shulchan Aruch. It has Karo's words in regular print, and then it has Haggah, which means note, like nota bene kind of a thing, and NB, and then it has Isserlich's words. So I'm guessing it's from the same thing, but the root Haggah, which only appears here in the book of Isaiah, I think, if I remember, but very, very rarely means to remove. And that's a new word for me, Hago Sigim, Hago Rasha. Okay. What else do we have in this section?
Did you want me to finish reading?
No, because we're going to connect that to the next one in a second.
Oh.
But is there anything else that
Yeah, I'm confused about um, remove a vessel emerged for the smith. Okay, take out the dross, and now you got a silver vessel. And now it says remove the wicked from the king's presence. What does that really have to do with the vessel? It's like
So
different things.
So there's two steps, or there are many steps, and it's interesting because it jumps from like the one of the initial steps to the final step of metallurgy, or making metallic objects. If you have silver or gold, right, you have to heat it up
Right.
to refine it so that I mean, aren't you in that world of heating things up, chemicals and elements and things like
Yes, yes.
that? So you
So you
heat it
get
up
the pure silver now.
right, to get the dross out, right?
Right.
And so that's refining. That's keeping the bad people. It's keeping the nunnikim away from the king, right?
Uh-huh.
Or out of the royal court. And
Oh,
and then it skips to the final part because there's other things that need to be done between removing the dross from the silver or
yeah.
from the metal from till making this the vessel emerging from the smith. So the draw, it says two steps: draw separated from silver, vessel emerged from the smith, and that's parallel to that is removing the wicked from the king's presence, and the vessel is the throne here will be established in justice. He's got to have good people. Has to
Yeah.
have honest, smart people with him in order for the throne to be established in justice. And once again, perhaps reflective, appropriate for Hezekiah, the king.
Thank you.
And that last part there, I agree with Rabbi Malka very much so. I remember uh, I was a witness at Rabbi Jonathan Klein's wedding. Hopefully, he's coming tonight, and he'll do a number with us or two. He wasn't sure, but at Jonathan Klein's wedding in Connecticut, probably in the 90s, yeah, mid 90s something, and they had just been ordained from rabbinical school. And the other witness was a rabbi who'd been ordained together with Jonathan and his now ex-wife, but his wife Zoe. They were both rabbis. And the guy who did the wedding or officiated was their Talmud professor from HUC, who was himself Orthodox or very, more religious. And so he did this. And when it came time to sign, the other witness said to his teacher, "Do I sign as Harav with the title Rabbi?" And I love the Talmud Jew says, the title Rabbi is for others to call you, not for you to call yourself. And that's how we did it in Israel, by the way. We that was it was first name and in Stockholm as well. But American cultures it's a little bit different. So that's why many or most of you call me Rabbi, I think, or Rabbi David. Um, and so yeah, but it's not for me to demand, unless there's cases where people are misusing it, right? People weaponize that. Sometimes people that want to make a point of not acknowledging my status as a religious leader will certainly call me by my first name. Yeah. Okay.
I bet your mother was unhappy if people didn't refer to you as rabbi.
That sounds like you're talking about your mother and happy if people didn't refer to
Oh,
you
you
as
mean I'm
doctor.
projecting? Is that what you're saying?
Okay. So go ahead, Rita Claire.
Where were we?
We're in the fourth line from the bottom.
Do not let what your eyes have seen be vented rashly in a quarrel. Think of what it will affect in the end when your fellow puts you to shame.
Hey. So things you see, so this is really a different topic, right? Doesn't belong with this section. The things you see or you think you've seen. You may have seen some action, but you don't know what's behind it, leads you to jump to conclusions and criticize them. I mean, we see this all the time, don't we? We see this all the time in the news. We see it in social media. We see it in our own dealings. Well, the people are want to assume the worst. Yeah. Let's see. Charles, do you want to read 9:13 for us? We're at the top. Go ahead.
There's something that bothers me a little bit about things that happen in a place of worship. that should not be happening. Does that have something to do with that?
Well, it could, but it could happen in the supermarket as well. But what you must be
But
thinking of
to
something you
me,
want
I
to share
think
with
it's
us?
worse. It's worse if something happens in a place of worship.
Okay, yeah. I can't imagine you'd be thinking of any particular place of worship here in Palm Springs. So we'll maybe gloss over that and move on to the next topic. Yeah. Yes, but you are right. We expect people to behave differently
Yes.
in a sacred space.
Yeah.
And that's something time honored in all traditions. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why that connects loosely, but still connects certainly thematically to the fact that a synagogue or a temple or a church is also called a sanctuary. It's a holy spot, sanctus, right? The holy spot. And we also use that word sanctuary as a place that you have refuge. The different stories and the laws that if a murderer, if somebody, not murderer, uh, manslaughter, a manslaughterer, can grab onto the altar, the horns of the altar in ancient society in order to save themselves. What happens when they can't stay in the temple anymore? That's a different story. But it's a place to, it's like when we did color wars at camp, right? There was always a safe space you could hide out at. I seem to remember. Okay. So Arthur, Charles, if you would,
Sure.
9 to 13.
Sure. And it says Charles, but my friends call me Chuck.
Chuck, okay, Chuck.
Defend your right against your fellow, but do not give away the secrets of another. Let someone who hears it reproach you, and your bad repute never end. Like a golden apples in silver showplaces is a phrase well turned. Like a ring of gold, a golden ornament is a wise person's reproof in a receptive ear. Let the coldness of snow at harvest time, like the coldness of a snow at harvest time, is a trustworthy message to those who send him. He lifts his master's spirits.
Hey, this is what I was referring to, a complicated section. First of all, one thing that comes up is there are a number of similes here, right? Like something is like the other, right? Which is different strictly from metaphors, but in the same family of symbolic language. And we can see how the last section that Rita Claire wrote is very, very possibly connected to this section. I think probably if I had a little bit more time before I sent out the sheets, I would have reorganized in that way. So the first part is pretty easy, and I think pretty sure we've had it in Proverbs before, this idea of how you get along with other people by keeping secrets. And if you don't keep the secrets of another, then you will end up having bad repute. In other words, that's kind of the culture I've been talking about over the last few weeks, that you get used to doing a particular type of behavior. And so if you are used to talking trash about people, people are going to talk trash about you. If you're used to not keeping a secret, people won't keep your secrets. You emanate that kind of culture. So the keeping of secrets being very important here, not as a negative thing at all. Those of you that join us for the Shabbat morning prayers, know that in the Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings, we do a longer meditation where I will offer a kavanah, an intention for each of the blessings. And when we get to Malbish Arumim, which is classically giving thanks and praise to God for clothing the naked, that's what the words mean. To me, clothing the naked is not only protection against the elements, but also protection against prying eyes. We cover the things on our body we don't want others to see. We don't want everybody to see. And then from that going on to, we keep secrets also that not everybody needs to know. And keeping a secret is not a bad thing per se. Depends on the relationship. It depends on the thing. Is it detrimental to other people? But this right to privacy. So for me, Malbish Aromim as a morning blessing is the blessing over our right to privacy. And interestingly enough, no, I'm not going there. Okay. Enough. I have been reprimanded lately for that. I just need to curb myself and keep in the focus here. So
What is kasinat shelig?
Yeah, so we're going to go to each of those now because that Sina means coldness, the cold, the freezing, the cold. the coldness of snow, the cool we made into the coolness. But let's take each of these similes separately. The first one is a little bit complicated, right? Like golden apples and silver showpieces, the Hebrew is tapuchei zahav b'maskiot kasef. Right. So first of all, what is the thing to which is a phrase well turned compared to? There's a teaching mechanism. This is right. There's an educational methodology here of using examples. And so, what is a golden apple and a silver showpiece? If we look at the Hebrew tapuach, it could mean apple. By the way, apples I don't think existed in biblical times. Some people think they were apricots. Some people think they were some other kind of round shape and something you could eat, maybe some sort of a part of a flower or something. And so, but if it's gold, it's not that it was an actual gold apple. It's not like that species of apples that you can find in supermarket, which I think there's one that's probably called gold, right? Has gold in it, a yellowish.
Golden delicious.
Yeah, golden delicious. So that's not what it's talking about, although this is great material for advertising, right? And mesquite, there's a store in Jerusalem called Mesquite that many tourists would go to, and Israelis looking for expensive gifts of Israeli arts, not arts and crafts, but jewelry and things. And mesquite has to do with something which is inlaid. When you have some material and the more expensive materials inlaid in, so like a wooden table that has mother of pearl inlaid into it, or a metallic object. I should have pulled up, had I had more time, I would have pulled up one of Bill's pieces where there's a silver crown and then there's some golden parts to it. That's what this is talking about. A silver work of art or jewelry, most probably jewelry, I think. And then there's a golden part of it. So it's the nice stuff and the nicer stuff in it. And the tapuach only refers to the shape. We haven't found, at least, why do I blank on his name all the time? Michael Fox. Fox doesn't cites that he knows of no archaeological evidence of a shape of an apple or an apricot for that matter in jewelry. But what do we have in ancient jewelry? Anybody?
Pomegranate?
Exactly.
Pomegranate.
Exactly. Pomegranate. So this is the same family of design. Is something, a beautiful round kind of an object, right? And so, but the author here or the tradition, the way it's translated here if it's from another language, is referring to something that was most probably well known. And so that is somebody who speaks a word wisely, is a phrase well turned. In other words, not just the phrase, but the phrase in the right context, the right word in the right context is the golden inlay. I think I'm using inlay right here on the silver jewelry. Okay. And so then we go on to the next one, also from the world of jewelry, or maybe that influences our understanding of the previous one in jewelry. Nezim zahav v'chalikatim, right? So zahav is the ketim is also a word for gold, but I think though that very very probably there were two kinds of gold. So let's say like a ring of gold, like a ring of 24 karat gold in a 14 karat gold ornament. That's how I kind of understand this here. Silver, white gold, is that more expensive? White gold in a yellow gold kind of an ornament. And so these two things together is a wise person has reproof, right? That's a good thing, but when it lands in a receptive ear, then it's a better thing. So it's the good and the better. So now we get into, so we've gone from the world of jewelry to what you asked about, Rabbi Malka. Tzir Tzinat Shelig Biyom Katzir Tzir Ne'eman L'Sholchav V'Nefesh Adonav Yashiv. So we have Tzina, Katzir, Tzir, Yashiv. There's the alliteration here, which is part of the mnemonics of remembering these kind of things, but also just We find that often in the book of Proverbs. I don't know if it has any more meaning other than it's just a stylistic thing. But what does it mean that like the coldness of snow at harvest time? When is harvest time?
In the fall.
Anybody? So harvest in North America, the harvest holiday is in the fall.
Mhm.
The Sukkot is a harvest holiday, but it's at the end of the harvest. So the truth is by Sukkot you would have been done with your pomegranate, date, grape, olive, and fig harvest. Those are the five fruit trees. So it doesn't make sense then so much because it said it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a coolness. Wet, the other harvests, barley comes first and then wheat, are in May. Say late April, May, or Shavuot, May, June. So this is kind of like if you could imagine getting a cold beer, at the heat of the work, in the middle of the in a 105-degree weather and you're on a construction site, that's what a trustworthy messenger is like to those who send him. That would be my rephrasing of this. And
So is that Sinat related to Hezekian?
no,
Is that the same shorage?
no, that's a sin. That's
Oh,
what the
that's a
word sin,
sin.
sin nun aleph, and this is sina.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we say today, litzonen is to cool something down. What a sinun is a cold in Hebrew, having a cold.
Sinu.
Yeah, sinun. Sinun is also the period that you have to wait if you're in a government position. You have to wait 2 years or 5 years before you can go into the private sector. What was that called in English? Where you have a cooling off period where you have to not allowed to go back into the business that you were part of regulating, or you have too much inside information.
Mm.
Nobody's going to help me with that word.
Remember the word.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mhm.
Anyway, but it means a cooling off period, right? Sinun. Okay. All right. Any comments or questions?
I have a question. When it talks about the trustworthy messenger to those who send him, the benefit of the coldness of the snow is not to the receiver of the message, but to the one who sent the messenger.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when you send a message and it's an important message, you're anxious. There's anxiety. Will the message arrive? Les, I'll put it in your terms. You've sent a message to somebody, which is a crucial kind of a thing in a delicate issue, and then you see the typing. What's it? Where you start to get the dots on your iPhone when you do a message. It starts typing, and then it goes away. And then it comes and goes away. You're not sure if they got it or not. It says delivered, but did they really get it? This idea of not knowing once the message has been delivered, then they can relax. I think that's how I would understand this.
So are they saying that the coldness of the snow in the harvest brings peace to the person who sent the message?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. As opposed to the peace or the one who receives the message.
I guess because I've been snow deprived, I have no idea what this simile means. So the whole idea of snow in a harvest. I mean, usually I think of snow in a agricultural thing as destroying the crop.
Right. And he brings that up. It is a little bit strange, but the idea is this work in the heat of the summer, I think, kind of a thing. This the heat of the heat. And anyways, a katsir though that's used, it's a little challenging. Katsir doesn't mean harvest. I'm sorry. It says here harvest time, but katsir is a specific harvest. Katsir is cutting the fields. There are different words in Hebrew for different types of agriculture and different acts in the agricultural process. We say that we use harvest for everything, basically, right? We use picking sometimes. We pick apples, but we harvest the grapes. People don't say pick the grapes so much. Maybe they do. I don't know.
It's not real snow. Is it more like a breath of fresh air?
Yes, it's a simile sauce. So in any case, it's not real. So some of the earlier commentators said, it's like they would bring snow from Harmon down to the fields, right? Well, that's not practical. Those are people that don't know. Fox is good with that because he's on the ground. He knows Israel. That's no, it's not, and it doesn't snow. He uses the term. It's meteorologically impossible. It's a meteorological impossibility that it would snow in May, which in Israel, in the land of Israel, it would be, but anyway, as I said, complicated material, but interesting nonetheless.
Somehow or another, I'm getting a different meaning out of this.
Okay, go ahead.
I almost feel like it's talking about relationships between one another and how you treat a secret that someone has given you. Like I think it takes a wise person to be able to give a reproof to someone in a manner that he would not find it offensive.
Right. So I don't I think this is you're very much in line with all the things we've said. This is for wise people. Wisdom behavior is all these things together. It is not to shout at somebody who won't accept what you're saying, right? It's framing this culture of dialogue, of interaction in a way that will work, will promote, progress with people, with humanity, as opposed to getting in the way. Eileen, you wanted to say something.
Oh, my mind went to a totally different place. Like golden apples and silver show pieces. I immediately thought of Torah crowns and embellishing the Torah with jewels as opposed to coveting what's inside the Torah.
So that would be negative, though, wouldn't that?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I don't think this is negative. I think it's a positive one, but it's using the ornaments that. So what are ornaments in a Torah scroll about? It's something called. It's based on. Uh, uh, what are the words? Oh, I think it's in Shema. It's in Talmud tractate of Brachot. It explains the term Hidur mitzvah. Hidur mitzvah means the beautification of a mitzvah. And so, for instance, you can use a lulav and an etrog that have brown markings on it and it's open. But if you want to do it really nice, then you get the best etrog you could find from that movie that those of you remember Ushpizin. Hidur mitzvah is glatt kosher. Kosher food is when it's slaughtered in a certain way. But if you want to look inside of the lungs and have all the different pieces to see if there's no da 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 da, that's what glatt kosher is, right? So it's hidur mitzvah. To light the Hanukkah candles, the Talmud says from an early tradition from the first century, says that it's enough to light one candle per household. And then if you want to be v'hamehadrim, from the same word hidur, those that want to do it better, then one candle for each person of the household, probably meaning the men of above age. And you want to do it even better? Oh, there's a debate between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai say you start with 8, go down to 1. Beit Hillel say you start with 1, go up to 8, which is the way we do it. So that is the language of Hidur Mitzvah. And the Torah crowns and the ornaments are in order to beautify or to lift our spirits and to make attractive the words that are inside. You are right. When people are far more concerned with the value or the artmanship or what of those things as opposed to the words inside, I agree with you. That's why I haven't for years. I have not been fond at all and tried to steer my synagogues away from dancing with the Torah scroll. This fact that people are dancing with Torah scrolls, they get so excited about it, but they don't learn the Torah. And specifically people, it's a phenomenon where people get really excited about that, but they don't come to class, so they don't learn on their own. That to me is a misunderstanding. So that's I would agree with you on that one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But don't tell Bill I said that. Not about the dancing, but about the things. No, Bill also realized, Bill's the first to say these things are important for him as a collector, but what's really important is the text behind him. That was what was so wonderful to work with him for so many years on things, because I came with the book knowledge of it that he didn't have from his background. He came with the history and the knowledge of of antiques and things like that. Okay, I see we've got, let's see if we can get one section, at least another one done. Dan, you want to read for us, 14 to 20?
Like clouds, wind, but no rain, is a man who boasts of gifts not given. Through forbearance, a ruler may be won over, A gentle tongue can break bones. If you find honey, eat only what you need, lest, surfeiting yourself, you throw it up. Visit your neighbor sparingly, lest he have his surfeit of you and loathe you. Like a club, a sword, a sharpened arrow, is a man who testifies falsely against his fellow. Like a loose tooth and an unsteady leg is a treacherous support in time of trouble. Disrobing on a chilly day, like vinegar on natron, is one who sings songs to a sorrowful soul.
See what I mean about living a little bit complicated, utilizing the world at hand to make the literature simple, right? Of course, it did the opposite with us because we don't know so much about the world at hand here. It could be that the two lines beforehand are close. The truth is, I divided this according to the parshiot. You can see the pay at the end of each Hebrew section, but it could have been divided differently because the similes are very. The first one, clouds, is similar to the one that comes beforehand. Although I like this first one. It's like people get excited over rain clouds in a famine-stricken land, and then they end up only being clouds and not rain clouds. This kind of a promise not fulfilled, faking. God's faking us out, giving us false hope. Yeah. A lot of different things here. Anybody want to pick out one to comment on?
I looked up natron at the bottom, which is basically bicarb. So it's putting acid on an alkaline topic. But what that has to do with disrobing on a chilly day, I have no idea.
Well, first of all, it's like vinegar and baking soda, right? When we made volcanoes and rockets and things like that when I was growing up. I'm a big fan of those kind of. That's about as much as I understand in chemical reactions. So let's take a look at that if we can figure this out, because I actually I didn't get too much to this. We could probably start with this next week, maybe. So you know what? Instead of trying to, let's benefit from the wisdom of Fox and others. And only one of you wrote to me that next week is not a good day, and we have it recorded. So unless somebody else says here that next week is not good for them, then you can't. So that's two of you.
Yeah, well, I may or may I don't. I'll be in Mammoth,
I got
so I
you.
may or may not be able to.
Right. You may be in the hospital, right?
I'll have
No,
family
hopefully
visiting.
not.
Okay. So then let's skip next week. And if we're looking to next week is the 24th, and the week after that is the 31st, is that going to be all right for people, or they're already busy partying?
I'm okay for New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Eileen, did you want to say something? Just unmute.
No, I'm okay for New Year's Eve.
Okay, folks. So I don't know, Madalena, if you can help us, but if you can hear us, I mean to say. If you could write down that we'll be skipping next week, everybody here, and let everybody
Sure.
know on the list. And then we'll meet on the 31st. Everyone, I want to thank Madalena here, not only for all the stuff that she does online with us this way, but she's really, we literally could not do Jews to the Blues without her. We could do the music, but there would not necessarily be anybody there in the hall. And we're basically sold out, right? And that's Madalena has a lot to do with that. Yeah.
And that's because Madalena had a sandwich thing, and she walked up and down by the casino for advertising.
Yeah.
Twirling the sign.
She paid someone. And because she's not here, Eileen and Art have volunteered to step in with a lot of the stuff on the ground. And really, Eileen, please send on to Art as well, and we'll thank you tonight. But it would be very hard to do this without you guys helping out. So
No problem. Look forward to it.
okay, everyone. Well, have a wonderful Hanukkah, and may the light shine. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.